So I was reading a few wild Yu-Gi-Oh cards because I've been playing some older games, and at the same time I've been Yu-Gi-Oh is fun to me. So I was reading some old cards, and some of these are they're strange, for lack of a better term, and you could see one right away that we're going to be talking about, but I picked seven just whack ass, what the hell were you thinking cards, because they either A, in my opinion, don't explain enough, or B, uh, what? Just what was your idea of, like, was that your intention? And these seven cards are just among the many that confuse me about Yu-Gi-Oh. Yu-Gi-Oh has so many confusing cards. But let's talk about the one in front of us first, and then we'll move on. An unfortunate report. It's a trap card, normal trap card. Your opponent conducts their battle phase twice. So you have to first play this, you know, like at some point. So it means that you have to be able to set this, and then it goes to the opponent's turn, or in your turn. It doesn't matter. But they conduct their battle phase twice, which at first glance doesn't seem that confusing. In fact, if you force them, for example, if we go like later in history, like if you're talking about like kaijus and stuff, where like if you set up interrupted kaiju and a bunch of other stuff, you could force battles. There's even certain decks that do really well on forced battles. But the thing is, this like the latest card we're talking about today, and this needs more explanation. This has always confused me because your opponent conducts their next battle phase twice, except battle phase is not battle traditionally. You can enter battle phase and then exit without battling. You are just entering and then leaving into main phase two. So, is there a reason? Do I have to battle? It doesn't necessarily say that, because when you conduct, you would think that means battle, but I don't think this has problem solving card text. So this is actually just not. I don't think it actually works as intended. And also, weirdly, this came out in the same set as the oh man, the monsters that, oh, I'm forgetting their name. How am I forgetting? Oh no, I'm so bad. But the ones that attack and then special summon a different version from, or a different name from the deck. Oh my god, how am I forgetting? Gladiator Beast. There we go. Holy shit. But ignoring that, it like, so I guess in the mirror maybe you could like trick and do weird shit. I don't know, but ultimately, I don't think this is necessarily a good card. I don't think it'll ever be a good card, but it just confuses me. This came out in 2007, by the way, the latest card by a long shot. Next, we have another very fun card. We have Curse of Fiend. I'm gonna zoom in as much as I can. Uh, Normal spell card. Remember, normal spell card. Change the battle positions of all attack monsters or attack position monsters on the field to defense position and vice versa. These positions cannot be changed during this turn this card is activated, except by the effect of a spell, trap, or effect monster card. You can only activate this card during your standby phase. Now, specifically, the your here means the owner, right? So you have to place this like a trap. This is basically a fancy trap card. It's always confused me why this is in fact a spell card. And I guess there's, like, don't get me wrong, changing positions back in the old days, because this was made in 2002. Uh, in the old days, locking positions down. I mean, Book of Moon saw play for forever. There was like Crass Clown and Stumble or Earthquake, whatever, whichever one it was. I'm not an expert. Like that, you can manipulate positions, get advantage, get resource. So it makes sense that there are a bunch of cards that manipulate positions that aren't necessarily good, But this is not good because it just, what does it do? Like you play like a trap card on your standby phase, and then during the turn this is activated, so it goes back to your opponent and they can change theirs? Like, why? Just why? Next one is Exchange. This one's pretty famous, mostly because it was played in the anime a decent amount. This came out in 2004 for America, though I think it came out a little earlier in another thing, like a promo. But I don't. When I was doing a quick search, I found a 2004 date. But both players reveal their hands and add one card from each other's hand to their hand. Now, this is the new updated card text. The older one is very long and unnecessary. Now, both players reveal their hands. That makes it worth it, right? And if you're playing a mirror match, this is actually a really strong card, except you're going negative because you are spending a card to give them a card that your best card potentially, and then you take possibly like a bad card from them. So ultimately, it's just a negative all the way through. You're spending basically two cards to get one of theirs, which, I mean, this could be a decent idea if you were going first and you do a full combo and then you get stuck with one floater in there that does nothing for their deck. And maybe they have, like, a weird trap or a spell, and you can just, kind of throw it in there. But it's too much setup, and just pick another card. Yeah, this is 2004. I think I've already stated it, but it's definitely like an early Yu-Gi-Oh card. Definitely very fun. Next, we have this guy, and yes, it's a little, ignoring the art and everything about it. This is a 2005 card, and the reason I pulled this up, and this is the only monster, by the way, that I picked. Gravekeeper's Vassal. Any battle damage this card inflicts to your opponent is treated as effect damage instead. Now, I've always had this question: why? Just why is that a thing? Because if you don't know, battle damage is actually different from effect damage. And there is a question I have. This has never been used and probably has never been looked at into a rules like problem. Is the battle damage, does the battle happen, and because effect damage is different, does it start a possible chain? And the only reason I say this is because maybe you could do like a chain off of it, which would be freaking hilarious because you could chain strike from it, which chain burn is an idea. I don't think that's how it would work in any like regard. I think it literally just changes the definition of the damage you're taking, but it would be funny if it did start a chain. Uh, but in any case, I do think it's just I just what the fuck? What what is the purpose? This is the only monster that does this throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history, and we've already covered a few cards that like has a few other cards that do similar things or close to it. This one does something that I don't think will ever be repeated because what the hell? What's the point? What's the actual point? Next we have, now this one is actually a card that's seen play, and while a few of the ones I will cover. I think there's one that has seen play out. I'm getting confused here, but this is actually a really cool card. Heavy Slump, 2004. If your opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, they shuffle their entire hand into the deck, then draw 2 cards. Basically, you are manipulating the cards in their hands to have way less resources. It's a very cool card. I like the idea of it, except I don't know the intention of it because like it eventually became a thing where you're like, it's good counter to like say max C, like they max C and you're like special summon 13 times, they now have an entire thing, and then you're like, oh yeah, heavy slump on your draw phase, and it's like, wow, get just get wrecked. So there is something to be said about this card being useful and like it has a reason to exist. But it's kind of a troll reason, which is very confusing because a lot of the older Yu-Gi-Oh cards, which this is a part of, I consider old Yu-Gi-Oh specifically in North America from like when the game came out to about like 2005. When all these cards coming out have like a really weird intention to them or close to it to where you can tell what they were thinking. This one is like, were you trying to troll people that like use draw spells? Because Pot of Greed, Graceful Charity, they're just drawing, but like there's not a lot of free draws. Usually you're exchanging a card for another card, or in Pot of Greed's case, you're only getting one extra card. You spend Pot of Greed to get two. So unless you're like just doing a ridiculous amount of like return to the hand stuff, this is very hard to pull off. And it's just an intention card that I don't really get. It's just a counter like draw spells, and even then, like, why just why, like, I don't know, it's an intention that I don't think really makes sense when it came out, because even by the time this came out, a lot of those cards had been limited and banned. So it's very confusing to me what the intention is. Really cool card. It's actually one of those cards that I build a deck around just because it's fun. But yeah, Heavy Slump, I have no idea the intention. Next, we have another card that I actually saw play, Magical Hats. Magical Hats is, I think, the oldest card, or no, I think Crucifine might be older, but 2002, Magical Hats, which is a very popular card because Yugi actually used it. During your opponent's battle phase, choose two spell slash trap cards from your deck and one monster you control. Special summon them as normal monsters. Attack 0, defense 0 in face down defense position. Set the chosen monster if it is face up and shuffle them on the field. The two cards chosen from your deck are destroyed at the end of the battle phase and cannot remain on the field except during this battle phase. So this has a very weird like use in which you can get spells and traps in the graveyard, which for a long time was very, very difficult. In fact, this was the only card for a decade and a half, basically. So it became very brutal to have to use this during the battle phase and try and get it out. But Yu-Gi-Oh was also slower back then. At the same time, this is a very whack-ass concept of a card. So originally, when Yugi uses it in basically any duel, I think it follows the same rules throughout the entire time he uses it, but maybe my anime knowledge is a little rusty. Now, it basically hides the monster into four hats. And or is it three? I don't remember. But it hides them, and so it becomes like a 33% chance, and then it becomes a 50-50. And yes, I know percentages change, I know statistics, but just bear with me here. And so it is a cool, like, just, oh, I saved the monster. This one is like, yo, you have to have two spell and trap cards to be able to use this, which, don't get me wrong, you more than likely did back then. But you're going to use them as like a token, but not a token, because they're normal monsters now, which is funny because that means this works with pacifists, which is a wild concept to me. But yeah, just it's a very wordy card that does a very unique thing. It's similar to Gravekeeper's Vassal, in which nothing's really done this again. There have been cards that are able to send spell and trap to the graveyard, but nothing quite like this and as sophisticated, for lack of a better term. Overall, just very wild. Uh, Next, we're gonna go Pot of Generosity. I think this is the last one, right? Yeah, we covered everything else. Pot of Generosity is 2005. Return two cards from your hand to your deck, then shuffle your deck. Now, there's a couple cards in the world that do have an amazing quality of when you draw them, you're able to do something. But this is also in the world where Reload exists, and I think Magical Mallet might exist. It might be a year later, or maybe around then. So what? Just what? What's the point here? You're throwing away 3 cards because you have to spend this to put 2 into the deck. Like, it's generosity to who? Your opponent? Even then, they're gonna be like more confused than like, oh, thanks, bro. Like, and it's very confusing to me that you would even print this card because when this came out, I don't think there's a lot of cards that when they're drawn, they have like an instant effect that you're able to do, or like, there's not a lot of cards that if you like draw, like Paras or Parasite Parasite. I'm saying that wrong. Sorry. If I had the name in front of me, I could say it. Um, but when you draw that card, it immediately special summons it once the effect goes off the first step. So you can't even play this card to be like, oh, I just put it, and now I'm not doomed by this weird effect anyway. I should have put this on the or put that on this list. So overall, it's like very rarely gonna come up as useful, and yeah, it's just I don't understand the point. But yeah, this is just 7 cards I pulled up. If you have any interest, oh look at that, zoom. If you have any interest, I do have a lot of cards I want to talk about. These are just 7 cards that I've always been kind of confused by. I tried to go early, and there are some newer cards I am confused by that I might do a video on. Because I do like Yu-Gi-Oh design. I think Yu-Gi-Oh design is whack as hell, but funny as fuck. So, uh, it is really enjoyable to kind of look into. Uh, but I'll maybe I'll tackle newer cards, and then I don't know, maybe we'll tackle the cards that I think like when I saw the art or I thought they were great even though they weren't, or I'll talk about like my favorite cards as a kid or something. I don't know. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but yeah, that's 7 whack ass Yu-Gi-Oh cards.